Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where it seems that Tom Cruise was not the magic ingredient for Top Gun Maverick. That movie opened last summer to the tune of $126.7 for the 3-day and $160.5 for the 4-day, going on to become a billion-dollar picture, a first for Cruise. He was so excited, just like Will Smith had been so excited when Aladdin became his first billion-dollar picture. And it didn't go so well for him either, although, of course, for very different reasons. But fascinating. So let's talk about Tom Cruise. He became known as the savior of the multiplex, even until just recently. I've seen so many people online tweet about how Tom Cruise is going to single-handedly save the movie business, and yet apparently none of you went to see his new movie. He's going to save it with other people, apparently. And he and Paramount, though, had hoped that the success of Top Gun Maverick would boost their and Cruise's long-running Mission Impossible franchise, which has always performed well at the box office, but not amazing. And well, it turns out it's still just doing well. It's not doing amazing. That's the thing. Like, a lot of the headlines are saying that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning has underperformed, but that's because Top Gun Maverick expectations were being put on it. It wasn't expected to open as big as Top Gun Maverick, but they were pulling the movie in that direction because of Top Gun Maverick. When you just look at Mission Impossible, these numbers are like right on track for the franchise. A 3-day of 56.2 and a 5-day of 80, because don't forget this movie opened on a Wednesday to try and get premium screens for as long as possible. Now, some in the industry have been like, Cruise baby, you should have opened your movie just on a Friday per usual, because then you would have had a more boffo 3-day and your movie would have looked better, the optics. But it didn't really pop out of the gate on Wednesday, meaning it's not like it did monster traffic on Wednesday and Thursday. And if only we could have moved that traffic to the weekend. I mean, it's just consistently doing, well, not amazing. And as I said, it's performing on par with the rest of the Mission Impossible franchise. It also, though, like the franchise, did particularly strong overseas. Its China number is excellent, pacing ahead of Fallout. But so it's still Mission Impossible. Top Gun Maverick could not change the franchise. Now, some in the industry are like, well, because, everybody's desperate for a good headline this summer, maybe Mission Impossible 7 will leg out, which is industry speak for it will do solid business for the weeks ahead. And they point to the extremely strong critic and audience scores. That's why everybody in the industry cares about cinema score. I mean, they're happy you liked their movie if you did, but they really want to know what it means for the multiple on the box office. And the higher the cinema score, the better the multiple, historically. But moviegoing has changed. There are some other factors at play which we're going to discuss. But I think a lot of people, here's the thing. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning did not have an opening that reflects people being excited to see it. So that excitement's not going to suddenly come out of nowhere. Like Elemental had nice holds, but it's still not a big hit because it opened low. So I think you're seeing moderate to pretty good interest in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and it's just going to continue along that path. And eventually, it's going to hit digital, where a lot of people are waiting for their movies these days. Or better yet, Paramount Plus at no extra cost. And speaking of Paramount, they sent yet another movie out to die with a poor release date. Their scheduler needs to work a little harder because they've killed a lot of movies this summer. But would Mission Impossible 7 have done better if it had come out another weekend this summer? I'm not so sure. As I said, this is just how this franchise historically has performed, but there are other factors this summer that I think might be contributing. Now, people talk about, we're tired of the MCU. We're tired of Disney live-action remakes. But I think people are just tired of sequels. I've seen a couple of people pointing this out, and I would agree with it. A lot of sequels, perhaps too many sequels. We're getting into ridiculously high numbers here. 7, 10, 5. Used to be a trilogy. And then you at least took a very long break. And then I think that's one of the reasons, for instance, that Barbenheimer might be such a hot duo, because they're both new stories. Also, like Dial of Destiny, Mission Impossible 7 skewed older. They didn't release any demographic, for ethnicity for Mission Impossible 7, although I would suspect it would be similar to Dial of Destiny and previous Mission Impossible movies. And Tom Cruise, it seems, even after Top Gun Maverick made $1 billion, still does not have particularly broad appeal. Some in the industry, a lot of people are doing some Monday quarterbacking here. They're like, Cruise baby. why don't you, if you're going to add new characters to every installment of Mission Impossible, why don't you add some popular younger stars, right? I mean, Henry Cavill, Fallout still did well, not amazing, but Henry Cavill helped that movie a lot. That was a good choice. Again, we were like, why did you kill him off? It was so stupid, although they've hinted that they might bring him back. I'm rooting for an evil twin brother or a good twin brother. I don't care. I think he was great for this franchise. And then while Haley Atwell is from the MCU, she's not one of the more popular members of the MCU. I mean, what if they put like Elizabeth Olsen in here? Although Elizabeth Olsen has problems outside of the MCU herself. But I think it would have gotten the movie more attention and maybe a little more interest. And Nicholas Hoult was originally going to be the villain. He had to be replaced. But was S.A. Morales the right choice? I mean, it's not like Nicholas Hoult ever sells any movie tickets, but maybe they should have kept thinking in that direction. I mean, I think that's constructive criticism, quite frankly. I think Cruise should consider it because I think this movie should have benefited more from coming after Top Gun Maverick than it has. Everyone loved Top Gun Maverick. Like, sure, everyone loved it. That's one of the reasons why it, along with Super Mario Brothers, made $1 billion. You don't get to $1 billion without appealing to multiple groups. But conservative audiences did push both of those films. Now, we know why they pushed Super Mario Brothers, because it was like an anti-Disney film, etc. But I think we were kind of wondering, we thought maybe Tom Cruise had gotten like a new audience base to add to the one that he had. But it seems that he didn't. Maybe it was the military aspect that helped Top Gun Maverick with those audiences. If you really love Top Gun Maverick, and you don't plan to see Mission Impossible 7, why is that? What is the difference to you? Do you plan to maybe watch Mission Impossible 7 down the line? I mean, it's not like Mission Impossible 7 is pushing any agendas. It's actually, I think, kind of anti-government. And like most of Tom Cruise's movies, it's not particularly diverse in terms of the cast. So I am very curious as to why you might not have gone from being a Top Gun Maverick fan to a Mission Impossible 7 fan. Then, of course, obviously, there's Sound of Freedom, the wild card in this summer's box office deck. Look at these numbers. Bottom line, the film went up 37% this weekend, adding 413 screens. Still getting enormous support from conservative circles, but clearly there's a curiosity factor kicking in here, with other groups deciding to see themselves what all the fuss is about. The film will likely settle around 100 million total domestic. It could go a little beyond that. Let's see. But I think it's likely to settle around 100 million, a better total than many other movies in the marketplace right now that a lot of movies would kill for. And while some conservative pundits use the film to browbeat Disney over Indiana Jones 5's poor performance, I think when you see what happened there and then you see it repeat with Mission Impossible 7, it's clear that Sound of Freedom is hurting both those films. How is it hurting it? Well, it's not just the box office, in terms of what people are seeing, but I think it's hurting the online chatter. Whole chunks of the internet are talking about Sound of Freedom, which is relying heavily on a grassroots campaign, which means they're tweeting about it, they want you to tweet about it, etc. So all that attention, which could have gone to Dial of Destiny or Mission Impossible 7, like say it went to Top Gun Maverick last summer, is instead going to Sound of Freedom. So the lack of chatter, I think also, it makes those films seem like they're less of a big deal, that they're less poppin', So I think, again, it's a 1-2 punch. Loss of actual audience and then loss of online chatter, which also affects audience. Last week, I noted that releasing Sound of Freedom might make it harder for Angel Studios to become a part of the Hollywood machine, like, say, Tyler Perry did, coming from the outside. But some of you did a counterpoint that Angel Studios promotes itself as an alternative to Hollywood. And with first The Chosen streaming show being a massive success, and now this box office success with a movie, they just might have accomplished that, I think. Can they do it again? That's always the question. For any studio, can you do it again? And they'll surely try. And thanks to grassroots campaigning, they have built up a significant fan base that will be there for the next round. So I would say if they can get another hit movie out by, at the very latest, the spring or the summer, the earlier the better, but you don't want to rush it because you want to make sure that it's the same type of hit to prove that you're a hit factory. Because you want to have The Chosen, you want to have Sound of Freedom, and then you want to have another one, So I think that if they can do another one, they're already definitely on the Hollywood map. But I think if they can do another one, they'll have definitely established themselves as a force to be reckoned with in the entertainment space. The rest of the box office is pretty bleak, though, with some big drops, especially towards the top of the top 10. Dial of Destiny looks like it won't even get to 200 million domestic, which is really bad for a blockbuster of that size and that cost. We'll talk about budgets in a moment. But I don't think Mission Impossible 7 is going to get to 200 million either. Fallout did, but I don't think that's going to happen for Mission Impossible 7. I mean, it's not impossible, but I think it's very unlikely. Although at least Mission Impossible 7 is doing well overseas, as we just discussed. But Dial of Destiny, those overseas numbers are bleak. It likely won't be able to get to 500 million total. It won't even get to 500 million. You know what? I think it might not even get to 400 million total, which is just devastating. Again, if Kathleen Kennedy is able to survive this, she shouldn't be able to survive this. This is horrific. At least The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid was like, whew, thank goodness there's a movie that's done worse from Disney. The Little Mermaid was able to get close to 300 million domestic, which is still lower than the domestic box office for other recent Disney live-action remakes, particularly the Renaissance ones. But that film, where it really floundered, was the overseas box office. That was, again, overseas for both those films. It's just, not doing well. That's very bad. Overseas box office is important. Dial of Destiny and Mission Impossible 7 are both 300 million pictures in terms of their budget, due to having to stop and start as they filmed during COVID. The Little Mermaid had similar issues and was close at $250 million budget. Beauty and the Beast, for example, was like 184. And so was Aladdin. Those numbers were lower. So COVID has increased the budgets of some of these movies, which has hurt them in terms of their financial pictures. Now, on that note, one has to wonder if the SAG strike, which has stalled many films mid-shoot, likely for months, if that will also blow up those budgets as well. What will Deadpool 3 be stuck working with? I mean, if you have to pause for any significant amount of time, which I think it'll probably be at least a month, you have to send everybody home, and then they might or they can't get other work because Hollywood's shut down. But then, you have to remobilize them. Once a movie's up and running, to get a movie up and running is an expense. So to have to do it more than once is not great. So that is a concern for some of the movies that are stuck on pause right now. Wicked is another one. And will the strike affect Barbenheimer? Ooh, a lot of you have been asking me how you can show your support to the WGA and SAG, especially after some particularly heartless comments from and revelations about the studios. I told you in my breakdown of the strike that it was going to turn, particularly with the actors, it was going to turn into a public relations war. And the actors seem to be very good on their side. And I think that the studios in particular are going to take some hits. And right out of the gate, they took some really bad hits at the end of last week. So some of you have been like, well, maybe we should just not go to the movies to show our support. I think ticket sales have been robust for opening weekend for Barbenheimer, particularly for Barbie. So I think for the most part, those two movies are safe. But the negative attitude towards Hollywood, which was already percolating, that might be increased by these strikes and the revelations and as they fight it out in the public relations arena. And it could affect other films. It could even affect Barbie and Oppenheimer after their opening weekends. We'll have to see. The question, though, is just how big will Barbie open? Oh, the industry is projecting close to 100 million. They're saying along the lines of The Little Mermaid, which came in just under 100 million. But I think it's going to be bigger. I'm seeing that almost all showtimes, not only premium, but also even regular, are sold out or close to sold out. And we aren't even dealing with walk-up business yet, which I think will be substantial, again, particularly for Barbie. The biggest opening of the year so far is Super Mario Brothers at 146.3. So that's the number to beat for a good, juicy headline for Barbie. And I think it's very doable. That would even put Barbie in the top 10 openings ever for the month of July. And in fact, to crack that list, all Barbie needs is to top 104.3, and that's even more doable. Oh, exciting. Very, very exciting. If you go and check how the pre-sales on Barbie, they're insane. I think that movie is going to open really big. Over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for the middle of June, Black Mirror leads the overall chart. Now, wait a minute. How is it leading the overall chart over here on Nielsen, whereas when we looked at Netflix's own charts for that debut week, Black Mirror was second to Never Have I Ever, which you can see here is a little lower down. Well, that's because Nielsen still uses minutes and counts all seasons under one show. Whereas Netflix has changed to views instead and counts seasons individually. So all these charts, I wish they were all on the same page because it makes it harder to understand what's going on with streaming. Although, as we're seeing from the strikes, that appears to be intentional. You don't know how anything's doing. So that's why Black Mirror 6 did not debut at number 1 on the Netflix charts. And then also here, while Avatar 2 is still the top movie, Extraction 2 debuted with bigger numbers than we've seen for movies lately on streaming. So that's nice. Very good movie. I would have liked to have seen it done a little better. It would have been nice if it could have topped Avatar 2. But at least I think that franchise, the Extraction franchise, is still doing well enough for a third installment. Oh boy! On the originals chart, Ted Lasso is still doing well enough, even though season 3 has been wrapped for 2 weeks at this point, to be pretty high up on the chart. Well, Paramount Plus got on here with one of their Star Trek shows, which are, I think, some of their most successful, aside from Yellowstone. And Arnold is still doing very well on Netflix. He's been in the top 10 for weeks with not just one, but 2 shows, the FUBAR and then the documentary. And over on movies, again, you can see how low most of the numbers are here. After Avatar 2 and Extraction 2, the rest of the movies on this list, look at the gap. It's incredible. Then over on Netflix's charts, for just last week, their movies aren't doing big numbers either. But at least The Outlaws, that was a cute movie, but it was very much a streaming movie. I watched it. That was able to debut as a soft number 1. And yes, Nimona was able to rise up the chart to 3rd place after a weak debut last week. But still, these numbers are not great. Netflix would have to really believe in this project to give it a sequel, and they might. But I would also tell them to take a very hard look at why it didn't do better and why it wasn't able to cast a wider net of appeal and try to combat that. Take what's great about the movie, but then try to create more appeal for a sequel so that it can reach a bigger audience. I mean, I wouldn't just blindly make a sequel. I would try to intelligently make a sequel that, tried to build on what they've done here. But let's see, these numbers are low enough that I think there's a chance they won't continue with it. Then with shows, The Witcher is a soft number 1 for its 2nd week, while The Lincoln Lawyer Season 2 doesn't seem as popular as Season 1, at least not yet. It also just dropped here on this chart. This chart is pretty weak, actually. Usually the shows do better than the movies, but this is also, even with Is It Cake Season 2 back in the mix. Oh, Pun City. This is interesting, though. Kudos to Tom Segura, whose special, which is just a one hour long episode, managed to place 3rd thanks to the new way that Netflix counts viewership. Because when you look at the hours viewed, you can see that it normally under that system would have been at the bottom of the chart. So that's interesting. And I think that it shows that, the Tom Segura special was more competitive and would have been at a disadvantage under the old viewership system. I think Nielsen should consider switching to this, but maybe they're like, that's a lot of math to make us do. But I think Netflix was right to make this switch. I think it gives a clearer picture. Then on iTunes, new digital releases, Transformers, Rise of the Beast, and Asteroid City are both doing quite well, as one would expect, while Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, now on its 2nd week in digital, is still right at the top as well, which is a great sign for that movie, and a good sign for Marvel overall. They need a bright spot, boy. And so does James Gunn as he heads over to the treacherous waters of DC. And also, you can now rent Super Mario Brothers for just like $6, so that is also back at the top. And despite not blowing up at the box office this weekend, people are still interested in Mission Impossible, the franchise, as the box set is in the top 10 as it was last weekend. And then Dungeons & Dragons is on sale as well. This is to purchase this time for $10. It's great to see how they can kind of move these movies back up to the top 10 with price adjustments, sometimes by first sending it to rental and then, a sale on sales. So you can own Dungeons & Dragons for just $10. And a lot of people are saying, yoink, I think I will. That was a very good movie. Didn't make my top 10 list for the year, but I really enjoyed it. As for this coming weekend, again, it's Barbenheimer time. Ooh, Barbie will surely win the day, but it will be interesting to see just how Oppenheimer does opposite it. We've seen some glimmers that Christopher Nolan's actually a little upset about Barbie coming out opposite his movie. It's counter-programming, man. I think Oppenheimer's still going to do very well, and Oppenheimer never was about making big bucks. It wouldn't be 3 hours if it was. It's about getting Christopher Nolan into the awards race. And also, I think leg out. The Lincoln Square IMAX is sold out for almost, I think a month basically, of showtimes every day of the week. So there is hot interest in Oppenheimer. I think that Christopher Nolan should just embrace the fact that they're very different films. And there's room for both of them, quite frankly. A lot of people are seeing both of them same day or same weekend. How about you? Now, so the biggest opening ever for a non-Batman Nolan movie is 62.7 for Inception. And that, of course, had Leonardo DiCaprio to help out. I don't see Oppenheimer opening that big. I think it's projected to open in the 50s. And I think that seems reasonable to me. But let's see again how it legs out. Some people might also say 3 hours about the atomic bomb. Can't wait to watch on digital or streaming. All right, so I'm curious what your plans are. Well, Barbie is a fun party at the movies. Then on Tuesday, speaking of Warner Brothers, The Flash hits digital. Warner Brothers is all over the place, both in terms of good and bad, because Barbie is their movie. But also they lost Nolan. It's rough over there, but fun for us. So The Flash hits digital just a month after release, but not Max, just digital. Will it find an audience here? I suspect most people will wait for Max to watch it at no extra cost. And then you can scrub through it and do whatever you want with it. I think they're putting it aren't they putting it like on a NFT chain or something? So, they don't care either. All right, but how about the new Venture Brothers movie? I'm excited about this as a massive Venture Brothers fan. But that hits digital on Friday, and it won't be on Max for 90 days. That sucks. They're going to make us pay to watch Venture Brothers. And I thought about it when I was doing my notes for this, and I saw that I would have to pay to watch the Venture Brothers, even though I subscribed to Max. I was a little annoyed about it at first, but I like the Venture Brothers so much, and it's been so long since we got any new content. I was like, okay, I'll shell out the $20 or so. It's going to hurt, but I'll do it. And it's only like 84 minutes, the movie. Whatever. All right, so are you going to pay for Venture Brothers, the movie? You'll have to wait 90 days for Max. That's too long. All right, as for streaming movies I'll have forgotten about it by then. All right, as for streaming movies, on Thursday, Max does have, what does Max have? They have a DC documentary, if you'd like to check that out. While on Friday, Netflix drops They Cloned Tyrone. And I think the trailers for that have been pretty funny. Then with series, a little light this week with series. Justified. I love Justified too. This is a big week for, Venture Brothers, Justified. I'm eating good this week. I'm excited. Justified returns to FX, and of course Barbenheimer. But Justified returns to FX on Tuesday with 2 episodes. And on Thursday, Netflix drops season 3 of Sweet Magnolias. 3 seasons. Do you watch Sweet Magnolias? It always amazes me to see these pocket shows on Netflix that are huge. All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of the box office? Not just this weekend, but what are your expectations, hopes, and dreams for Barbenheimer? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.